Hey everybody, my name is Brandon from thestocksims.com, and today I want to talk about AMD stock. Ticker symbol AMD. What I'm going to do first is go into Google, talk about the macro picture before going into the earnings report to talk about how AMD is doing as a business. And then we'll go into the trading charts to see if there's a level or two to buy AMD if we want to buy AMD. So now let's get started. So here we are in Google, and we can see that in about a month, we were down over 20% before just a couple days ago when we corrected back upwards with the rest of the NASDAQ. So if we scroll down here at the news, we can see that a lot of people are talking about the semiconductor makers like AMD being caught in the sell-off that we had recently due to the higher interest rates. However, what's important to see is that a lot of these articles do have a bullish tone. So the question is, why are these articles so bullish on the stock that has dropped about 20% in a month before our rebound? Well, if we take a look at some of the articles here, a lot of them are talking about the chip shortage. Because nearly every fancy electronic device has these semiconductor chips in them, if there's not enough of these guys to go around, then there's a huge impact on the economy. But the question is, how does this impact AMD directly? And how does that contribute to the bullish tone on Wall Street? So it's actually very important to point out that AMD does not make its own chips. Because of that, the normal supply and demand explanation may not apply directly here. What AMD does do is that it designs the chips and then asks third-party manufacturers like Taiwan Semiconductors to make the chips in their factories. The reason for this is because to build one of these factories is incredibly complex and a huge money sink. Back in the 90s, I believe AMD actually had fabs, or the factories where they manufacture the chips. But they were huge drags on the business. They cost so much money to make, and at the end of the day, they were not worth it. Lisa Su, the current CEO, saw this as one of AMD's main problems, came in and removed the fabs from AMD's possessions. More on Lisa Su later, but the main point is that AMD is actually benefiting from the shortage secondhand. The main beneficiary of the chip shortage will likely be someone who makes the chips like a Taiwan Semi. But AMD will still benefit because they can charge more for the chips that they are selling to its customers. That, of course, will likely increase revenue and margins, which is obviously a bullish sign for the stock. But again, the distinction that I want to make is that the benefits of the chip shortage will only be second-hand benefits because AMD contracts out to Taiwan Semi. For a chip maker like Intel, however, who owns its own fabs, the chip shortage will likely have more of a positive impact on their business because they are more vertically integrated and are more able to capture more of the pricing power from the shortage. The last point I want to make in the macro section of the video is about Lisa Su. In my opinion, I think she is one of the best CEOs of all time. If we can scroll up here and look at a max chart, we can see that AMD was doing great in the 90s and the early 2000s. So full disclosure, my parents actually worked for AMD just until the dot-com boom, and then once the dot-com bubble burst, they didn't work there anymore. But now I want to draw your attention to 2006. Look at how the stock just fell off a cliff in 2006. Now I want to bring attention to when Lisa Su started to take over AMD. We can see that she started her tenure in 2014. And if we look at the stock price in 2014, we were in the penny stock range. We were in the $3 to $4 a share. Everybody thought, including my parents, that AMD was over. I remember going to vacation to California, and I remember going to the AMD building, and my parents said that we should take a picture fast before the AMC comes down because they had to sell it in bankruptcy. But once Su came aboard, if we look here in 2014, after 2014 came, Lisa Su was able to turn the ship around and save the company. And now the stock price is where we are today. Because of this, honestly, I think the biggest bull case that AMD has is Lisa Su. The last point I want to make in the macro picture here is about competition with Intel. A lot of people talk about AMD's main competitor being Intel. The reason for that is because Intel just signed on a new CEO whose name is Patrick Gelsinger. A lot of people have a lot of faith in this guy, so as an investor in AMD, you have to be aware of who your competition is. Because this guy seems like a good leader, he could bring Intel back to life and be a major competitor to AMD. So that's something you have to keep in mind. So after talking about the macro picture of AMD, let's head on over to the earnings report to talk about AMD specifically and see how the fundamentals of the business is doing. So here we are in AMD's most recent earnings report, and we can see that their revenues and gross profits are increasing year over year by over 53%, with this being the most recent quarter. Firstly, that is fantastic growth for a company as old as AMD. Secondly, and what I think is even more impressive, take a look at the gross margins here. We see that we are maintaining our margins year over year, even if our revenues are increasing by 53% year over year. What that's telling me is that this company is operating incredibly efficiently, and that gives me confidence that as AMD scales up its operations, they will be able to maintain their margins. However, if we take a look at the operating expenses here, we see that our operating expenses are also increasing by about 47% year over year. Now, if I can judge a book by its cover for a little bit here, that's kind of not what I want to see in a legacy company. Yes, we're growing revenues by over 50%, but I want to keep most of that increased money. However, before we make a decision on whether this increase in operating expenses is a good thing or a bad thing, we first need to take a look at what they're actually spending money on. So to see this, we have to look at the detailed review about the statement of operations, which I pulled up here. So if we look into the detailed view of the earnings report and focus on the operating expenses lines, which is research and development and marketing, general and administrative, we see that year over year, with this being the most recent quarter ending in December 2020, we see that we are doing a lot of our extra spending on this research and development, which is exactly what I want to see for a tech company, as opposed to increased spending in sales, general, and administrative. What that's telling me is that by increasing spending in research and development is that AMD is investing in their product and investing in their technology so that they can continue to be an industry leader for years to come. Again, exactly what I want to see in my companies. So even though we are seeing an increase in operating expenses, even though we are spending a little bit more on marketing, general, and administrative, a lot of that money is going into research and development, which is again exactly what I want to see. However, you have to keep in mind that investing in research and development does not have a guaranteed return on investment. The reason for this is because, well, they're investing in science, and sometimes science doesn't work out. So after talking about the fundamentals of AMD, let's head on over to the trading charts to see if there's a level or two to buy AMD if we want to buy AMD. So here we are in AMD's trading charts, and as we can see, ever since around July, we've been really trading in this range between like $70, $75 and this $95, $100 range. And if we can look at January specifically, ever since January, we've been in a pretty well-defined downtrend. We've been making a lower high, and lower high, as well as lower lows. If we look back at the recent history, we saw that we bounced hard off of this $73 to $75 support level. AMD tested this support level numerous times in the past. We tested it once over here and a few times over here, and the support level was able to withstand it. So today we are around the $81 level. So if we do hit the $75 support level again, I think that would be a good entry point to AMD if I wanted to start a position in AMD. Because we are still in a rising interest rate environment, I wouldn't be surprised if AMD drops down to the $75 level again in the near future. However, AMD could also test these resistance levels here around the $85 level. We see that we hit a nice resistance level over here, and over here. We can see that on the way up, AMD hit its head on the resistance level and then came back down. But once we broke through this resistance level with strong momentum, we kind of hit our feet on the resistance level and then bounced right back up. So I think this $86, $85 level is the equilibrium point where buyers do match sellers. I think if you want to play for a breakout, that's another level where you could step in if you wanted to step into AMD. Just taking a look at the other major indicators here, here's a look at the MACD, which is a measure of momentum. If we zoom on in here, we see that the blue line is about to cross the orange line. That's a bullish sign because that's saying that the short-term momentum is stronger than our long-term momentum. Another point is that when this crossover happens, it could trigger some algorithms to buy the stock as well. So because of that, that could also contribute as a tailwind to AMD. Now let's talk about the RSI here, which is this chart, and we can see that we were only in the oversold territory for a millisecond, and then we corrected strongly back upwards. It's not common to see huge quality names like AMD be in the oversold territory for not really any good reason. So because of that, that was definitely a buying opportunity for the stock. So that was my review on AMD stock. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. If you have any questions or if you caught any mistakes, also drop me a comment down below. If you liked the video, please like the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching and I hope you have a great day.